Now you've got the complaint. We're going to go through and I want to identify all the different parts of the complaint, item by item, so you understand what's in there. It's very important that you know this information. All right. Now, in the materials, there's a sample complaint. This is actually one of my clients. We've marked out the pertinent information, but this is an actual complaint that I'm working with right now. If you look at the very top of your complaint, sometimes to the top right, they'll say what county it's in. In this case, it's Orange County. It's appropriate for the foreclosure to be filed in the county where the property is located that they're trying to foreclose on. If they're filing it in a county where the property is not located, that's not proper. And that will bring a motion to dismiss, which we'll talk about later. So it's important to figure out, first of all, what county is the complaint from. If it's not the county where your house is located, we'll have to figure that out the next segment. All right. So very first thing, what county is in, write it down. If you look to the left, the top left of the complaint, you're going to see the plaintiff. Now, who's the plaintiff? The plaintiff is the person who's bringing the action against you. And in this case, it's what we call a securitized trust. And that's something we're going to talk about later on as we go on. But that's another segment, another thing, and it's a whole different animal. But it's important for you to understand who the plaintiff is. And you're probably looking at it and saying, I don't know who this plaintiff is. I don't recognize that person. That's not the person that I get the bill for. I've never heard of them. Well, that's a common problem, and it's one that we call standing in the science. Who has the right to sue you? Why is this person bringing an action against you for foreclosure? And sometimes the answer is, well, they shouldn't be. But just because you don't recognize who the plaintiff is doesn't necessarily mean that they're not the right person to bring the action. The plaintiff should be either the person who owns the promissory note and the mortgage, or at least says that they do, or very often it's the servicer of the loan who you may be familiar with. So some of the big servicers, and servicers are just someone who can collect the money from you. Bank of America, Chase, Citibank, SunTrust, these are all servicers very often, and usually it's someone else who owns the loan. So it could be someone who owns the loan, it could be the servicer who's bringing the complaint. But first of all, who is the plaintiff? Write down who the plaintiff is in your case. It's going to be very important, especially when we go through with other pleadings. You're going to have to list it this way. And this whole top part of the complaint is what we call the case style. It's just every time that you respond or you do any type of other pleadings or discovery, that's what you're going to list in your pleading. A pleading is a paper that you file with the court. So you list the top part where the county is, you list the plaintiff and the defendant and the case number. The next thing there is versus the defendant. Now, the defendant is the person that's being sued. In this case, you're certainly part of that. The defendant should include whoever the person is that signed the promissory note, who's on the loan, who owes the money. That certainly should include it. Also should include anyone who has any type of property interest. And I get this question all the time from people whose parents or spouses or brothers or sisters are freaked out because they got served with a foreclosure complaint. Well, they probably don't owe the money. So if they're not on the promissory note, but they have some type of interest in the, maybe they're on the deed, it's appropriate to serve them as well to wipe out their interest in the foreclosure. So if they didn't sign the promissory note, if they weren't on the loan, they don't have anything to worry about as far as the debt goes. So, don't let people, leave, you're going to lose sleep at night because you think that you're destroying their credit. Not affecting their credit, not anything with that. Other people that might be included as defendants are people who have liens against the property or potential liens, judgments, the city, the county for different things that you've done or haven't done. So these are the people who are going to be listed as defendants. Okay. Now, over to the next, on the right side, you're going to see the case number. Now, all the different counties have kind of sort of a different style for doing their case numbers, but in general, you're going to see the first number, or one of the first numbers is going to be the year. Now, it might say 2013, it might say 2012, it might say 12, it might say 13, but that's the year. The next one is going to indicate the type of case that it is. Now, all of these foreclosure cases are what we typically would call CA cases or circuit civil cases. And that has to do with the amount of that we're talking about that they're suing you for. In general, Florida, it's 15,000 and above is a circuit civil case. So these are all going to be circuit civil cases for the most part, unless it's a homeowner association, which is a different story. But generally circuit civil. And then the rest of it's the case number itself that identifies the number. So you always need to have the case number in your case style so that they know which case it is. All right. So those are the basic parts of the case style. Now, in addition to that, there should be on your complaint a place that was handwritten by the process server or the sheriff who came in. It's going to tell them what day and what time they served you with the complaint. Now that's important. Then it's important that you write that down so you know when you have to respond. Now, as we talked about this in the previous segment, you have either 20 or 30 days to respond to the complaint, and it's from the date you were served. It's the next day. So if you were served on the 20th of the month, you start counting on the 21st. So it's 20 days or 30 days from that date. So it's important to know. It's also important to know, well, who was served. Now in Florida, it can be anyone who's over the age of 15 who can be served. So if you have a 10-year-old child in your house and they serve that child, that's not effective service. That's something that we can take out. If they left it on your doorstep and didn't have you sign for it, that's another problem with service, and we'll talk about that in another segment. So it's important to look at that to see, actually, did you receive it or was it given to someone else, and when was it done? And that's it for the basic complaint. Now, they're going to serve you. They may say serve your spouse. They'll serve other people so you're going to get a same copy of the complaint, and it'll say who, like on the summons, which is, hey, this is to you. It'll say your name and everything else. So that's the next thing on.